now to talk about all things political, chief political writer at Spiked Online. Brendan, I know you've written an awful lot about this case, and of course it is still sub judice. We need to be very careful. I know you understand, as a journalist, the rules around this. Actually, just breaking news, Rudakubana has also pleaded guilty to the attempted murder of 8 other children and the attempted murder of the 2 dance teachers, Leanne Lucas and Jonathan Hayes. Brendan O'Neill, your reaction to that?
Yeah, that is incredibly interesting. As you say, there's so little that we can say publicly about this, precisely because we want justice to be done. We want justice to be done for the girls who were killed and the girls who were injured, the families that were destroyed. So it's so important that we be careful in how we talk about it. But, you know, it will be really good when the truth comes out, because there's been so much mystification in relation to this case, and I think people want the facts, they want the truth, and they want justice.
Absolutely, and we know there are so many people who were imprisoned as a result of their reactions to the deaths of those 3 girls last summer, and a huge impact that had. I know we're still getting more breaking news in, and I'm just waiting. As soon as I get more, I will bring that to you. Let's also talk about other big events today. There's lots going on at home, lots going on abroad. But can I ask you about Trump and his inauguration today, and these 100, possibly even 200 executive orders that we're expecting to have announced by Donald Trump? What are your question we're asking our audience? What are your hopes? What are your fears for this Trump presidency?
I think today's a great day for democracy. Now, that doesn't mean I align with Trump on absolutely everything he says. I don't think he's the best thing since sliced bread, as some people do, but I do think he's an interesting, sometimes quite funny politician. But it is a truth that the American people voted for him. They voted for him in their tens of millions. They want him in power. They want him to change the country. They want to win their country back from the woke oligarchy that's been running it and destroying it for the past few years. So this is a great day of democracy. It's a great day of promise. I think the American people will feel very excited, even if the media classes will be wringing their hands. And I hope that Trump dismantles a lot of those crazy ideas that have taken hold in the West over the past few decades. And it looks like that's one of the things he really wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's going to be fascinating. How much do you think our own government, the Labour government here under Keir Starmer, is going to listen and learn from what Donald Trump's done? Now, you and I agree on so many of the big issues which actually Donald Trump is going to sign the executive orders on. I mean, things like, you know, net zero, getting rid of that, you know, cheap, plentiful fuel. And you can't have a booming economy without cheap, plentiful energy. Getting rid of the diversity madness that has trashed and damaged our children. You know, dealing with, you know, mass uncontrolled immigration. Do you think that Keir Starmer's going to watch and learn and go, oh, yeah, these are popular policies? Or do you think he's actually just going to double down and go the other way?
I think he's probably going to go double down and go the other way. I mean, it's going to be a wake-up call for the West. There's no question of that, because America is still the leader of the free world, and what happens in America has an impact everywhere. So it will have an impact. It will shake up the political establishment in the UK and in other countries too. But whether Starmer's capable of learning the lesson of American democracy, I can't see it myself. I think he's too wedded to these eccentric ideologies. He's too wedded to the ideology of net zero. I think he's still enamored to the transgender ideology, even though he's landed himself in hot water on that issue. He's still quite authoritarian. He doesn't particularly believe in freedom of speech. He doesn't believe in freedom of speech at all, in fact. So Starmer is still very much of that woke mold. He still is in with all of those crazy, destructive ideas. So I think Trump's emergence back into the White House will have an impact on Starmer and have an impact on Europe. But whether it will change what happens in Britain, I don't think it will, certainly not in the short term.
That is certainly the worry, isn't it? What do you make also of what is going on in our government here, and the decision, for instance, to send Peter Mandelson over as the UK ambassador to Washington, D.C., a man totally and utterly, absolutely, I mean, up to his neck with Chinese contacts, fully endorsing, you know, he was a former EU commissioner, a man who had to resign twice from office himself, a man who was, bizarrely, really quite good friends with, would turn out, with Jeffrey Epstein, in contact with him, just like Prince Andrew, after he'd been found guilty and had served time in an open prison for trafficking a teenage girl. I mean, what do you make of those choices? What does that tell us about where Keir Starmer is?
I don't know whether I hate Peter Mandelson or really admire him. I mean, his staying power is extraordinary. This man must know where the bodies are buried because you can't get him out of politics. He is Teflon. Nothing sticks to him. I think
There's a gap.
He's probably one of the best political operators of modern times. He's been around for so long. He's been in so many different governments and cabinets, and he's got lots of connections. And now he's going to have one of the cushiest jobs in Western politics, which is to be an ambassador in America, which is just such a nice gig to have, and quite an influential one as well. I think. Mandelson, for all his faults, and there are many of them, I think he probably will be quite good at kind of moving and shaking in Washington, D.C. I think he'll probably even be quite good at mingling with Trumpites. I mean, he is a bit of a chameleon figure. He is quite good at mingling with people, regardless of their political views and their political backgrounds. And recently, he's made a few noises about the development of wokeness that have been slightly positive and interesting, a little bit like Tony Blair has as well. Yeah. So I think Mandelson might do a good job to begin with, but he'll have to be really careful not to tick off the Trump administration by being too eccentric or too weird.
Yeah.
And let's see if he plays cards right on that.
Indeed. Now, look, I'm just going to come back to the breaking news regarding Axel Rudakubana. He has now pleaded guilty to all charges against him, not just to the murder of 3 young girls, the attempted murder of 8 other girls, and the attempted murder of the 2 teachers, Leanne Lucas and Jonathan Hayes, at that Taylor Swift-themed dance class. He's also pleaded guilty to production of ricin and possession of an Al-Qaeda training manual, and also possession of a bladed article in a public place, namely a kitchen knife with a curved blade. It's day 1 of his trial. He's going to be sentenced on Thursday. The expectation, Brendan, had been that this case would last 3 to 4 weeks. It was known that from previous plea hearings that he was not, that no defence had been offered. He'd been silent in a previous court hearing, did not offer a guilty plea, so the judge then enters a not guilty plea sort of automatically so that a trial would go ahead. But he has now pleaded guilty on the first day of his trial to all of the charges against him related to that horrific Southport attack. Your reaction to that, Brendan O'Neill?
It's what an interesting development. What a striking development this is. And the fact that he's, as you say, pleaded guilty to everything, including the production of ricin and the possession of an Al-Qaeda style manual, that's really fascinating. And again, this is the truth that people want, because we've been told so many different things about this case. We've been told it's not terrorism, maybe it is terrorism. There is so much shrouded around this case that we don't know. And the truth, people want the truth. They want to know the truth of how something so barbaric could happen to girls in this country. But I think, regardless of the sentencing and the conclusion of this case, which we all want to see, we will need a nationwide discussion about the culture of nihilism and about the fact that something like this could happen in Britain in the 2020s. We have to have a reckoning with our society as well as having a conclusion to this case. And if we don't do that, it's really a missed opportunity, I think.
It really is. Thank you very, very much indeed, Brendan O'Neill.